In this demonstration, I'm going to install Windows Admin Center on Windows Server 2019 and then provide you with an overview of this administrative tool. So in this particular case, I have downloaded the MSI file that is the installer for Windows Admin Center onto this computer because this computer is sitting on an isolated network. So I open up the folder that I have downloaded Windows Admin Center to, and I double-click on the MSI file to install it. I get the installation wizard, I accept the license terms, I click Next. On the Microsoft Update page, I have the option of using Microsoft Update to keep Windows Admin Center updated. And Windows Admin Center is updated on a fairly regular basis. But because this particular instance of it is on an isolated network that's not connected to the internet, I'm not going to use Windows Update to keep Windows Admin Center up to date. But normally, if you are connected to the internet, this is a good thing to do because new features for Windows Admin Center are being deployed all the time. Anyway, on this page, I click Next. When I'm installing Windows Admin Center on Windows Server, I've got the option of configuring it as a gateway server. The whole idea of a gateway server is you put it on a Windows Server instance and then you remotely connect to that Windows Server instance from your privileged access workstation. I click Next. Now, the next thing I get the option of doing is allowing Windows Admin Center to modify the computer's trusted hosts files that'll allow it to be used to remotely access other machines. I can also force Windows Admin Center to only use Windows Remote Management over HTTPS. In this case, I do not do that. I click Next. I can select a port for Windows Admin Center to run. Now, for the most part, you're going to run this on a separate server instance. You're not going to run it and co-manage on the same server that's got Windows Admin Center, something like Internet Information Services. Windows Admin Center uses its own special web server rather than IIS. I also have the option on this page of generating a self-signed SSL certificate that will expire in 60 days, or selecting an SSL certificate that's already installed on this computer if I've already generated one. Obviously, in a production environment, it would be a good idea to actually have a TLS or an SSL certificate that's got slightly longer lifespan than 60 days. I click Install. Windows Admin Center is then installed on this local computer. At the end of the wizard, I am given the URL of this Windows Admin Center instance, which in this case happens to be sea-admin1.contoso.com port 443. I click Finish. Now, one of the important things to notice before I load Microsoft Edge is that you can't use Windows Admin Center with the built-in Internet Explorer instance that is present on Windows Server 2019. So you will need to download and install Microsoft Edge if you are running Windows Admin Center locally. Of course, if you're using a privileged access workstation, such as on a computer running Windows 10 or running Linux or running Mac OS, you are remotely connecting to this particular instance of Windows Admin Center. So I open up Microsoft Edge and I navigate to the local SEA ADM1. That loads Windows Admin Center. I can see on the All Connections page that only this particular computer is currently listed. So if I clicked on that computer, I could go and manage this local computer using Windows Admin Center. But what I want to do here is I want to add the domain controller in this environment. So I add a Windows Server resource, I type in the name of the domain controller, and it will search for that domain controller. Now, it finds it fairly quickly because this is a domain-joined system. But in some other cases, you might need to provide the IP address or the fully qualified domain name of the computer that you actually want to go and manage. So it finds SEADC1. I select Add, and the connection's added. I then select SEADC1, and this opens Windows Admin Center to the overview page. Now what I quickly do here is I make sure that this browser is in full screen so that you can see more of the Windows Admin Center console. And you can see here that the overview page is showing us the computer name, the version, the amount of RAM installed, what processor is being used, how many logical processors have been assigned to this particular VM, or how many logical processors are available if it's deployed on bare metal. I'm going to show you now the certificates pane. The certificates pane provides me with good information that it was very difficult to get prior to having Windows Admin Center available. In this case, it's telling me that 10 of the certificates that are installed on this Windows Server instance have expired, 5 are nearly expired, and 37 are in a fairly good state. So if I want to see which are nearly expired, I can click on the Nearly Expired tab and I can get that list of certificates. And I can click on the Expired tab to see which certificates have expired and when they expired. I can select the Files tab. This allows me to manage the local file system on the server I'm remotely connected to. For example, here I am creating a folder named Data on the C drive of that domain controller. I can select Events, and this is essentially a web-based version of Event Viewer. For example, I can go into the application log. I can search. I can sort the application log. So here I am changing the item type. I select error and I can see the properties of that error event. I can select the devices node, and this gives me a web-based version of Device Manager for my remote computer. So I can expand disk drive and see I've got my virtual hard disk drive because I'm managing a virtual machine, and expand network adapters. I can select a network adapter, and I can even, if I want, select the driver tab. And if this was a normal piece of hardware on a physical device, I could select Update Driver and then update the driver remotely over the web. I scroll down further. I can select Performance Monitor. This gives me a remote version or a remote instance of Performance Monitor. I'm just going to provide a bit more space to look here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the Add Counter button to select the logical disk object for the local C drive on this domain controller and have it show me the percentage free space. The grade type here is going to be line, but it can be min-max or heat map. And you can see that that is now running as a performance counter, just as it would be in Performance Viewer. I can add additional counters if I want, or I can come across to the side here and view a much larger version of that performance monitor. I expand the tab sides. I can go to Processes. This is like a web-based version of Task Manager. So I can choose a process such as SVC host. I can see the details of that process. I can even use this tool to end the process, which is probably not a good idea on a server for a process such as that. I've got a registry editor. So instead of remotely signing onto a machine to edit the registry, I can do it through this web interface. For example, I can select the HKey local machine system node. I can add values if I've got the appropriate permissions. I can add roles and features to the computer, just like you would if you were using Server Manager. So here I'm scrolling down and I am selecting the Wins Server feature, which I am always amused is still in Windows Server when I was told as a student of the MCSE in 2000 that it was soon to be removed. With the installation of that role, I can choose Reboot if necessary, and it'll install that role or that feature, and I can see the progress of that installation through the Windows Admin Center notifications section. I can select scheduled tasks, and I can manage the scheduled tasks that run on this domain controller. I can create new scheduled tasks or edit existing scheduled tasks. And this is exactly the same as creating a scheduled task either using PowerShell or using the old Microsoft Management Console. I can select the PowerShell node. When I select this, this will give me a web-based instance of PowerShell. So we can see here that I ran the host name command. The host name command tells me that I am connected to SEADC1, which we know, even though I am running this command obviously on the admin Windows Server instance. I can run the command get service and it'll show me all of the services that are running on that Windows server that I'm remotely connected to. I can clear the screen. I can view the Windows features that are installed using the Get Windows Feature command, and I can see there that I have the Wind Server feature that you saw me install using the console.